Hello, everyone. This will be about realia and bilingual strategies to support English learners by McKenna Connell and Yanira Torres. Learning with the Very Hungry Caterpillar. Strategy 5 realia. Real life object to teach concept. Students can visually see, touch, and understand the meaning. It will also improve word knowledge and boost student involvement. So, in the story, The Hungry Caterpillar, we have different foods such as apple, pear, plum, strawberries, chocolate cake, Swiss cheese, sausage, green leaf, and the toy caterpillar would be provided so they can visually see the caterpillar and all these foods that it ate, and still more that were involved. Um, So, realia is a teaching strategy that uses real life objects such as clothing, food, or classroom items in order to help students understand new concepts and also understand vocabulary by hands-on visual learning. And I would like to say that this book is very helpful for English learners because it's very repetitive on words and it uses very colorful pictures, and so repetition helps you remember all the vocabulary that is being taught throughout the story, and the visuals will help you understand. Even if you don't know every single word, you will be able to connect the word with the picture. And that's what I love this story because it really does involve a lot of colors and drawings. Animation is absolutely beautiful. And let me see how really it works. So, really, it works when students connect what they are learning to real physical objects and they are able to see and touch. So, educators, when introducing an object model, they connect it to new vocabulary being presented. Students will be more engaged because they are able to have a better understanding what is taught, especially for English learners. So we can see here, these are little charts that can show you the food on the left side and then the word on the right side. And that is a very good visual for English learners to see and be able to connect the word with the food item. Or for instance, on this side, we have the butterfly, the cocoon, and more food, and the caterpillar itself. So we have the picture and then the word on this side. And as said before, there's a lot of repetition in this story, so it will be easier to grasp and be able to connect throughout the story as being read. A really activity that would be done would be, so our objective would be to learn the food vocabulary and numbers and days of the week. The materials that you would want to have is a real or plastic food, and of course the book The Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle. Activity is to show the food and say the name, have students repeat it. That way, repetition again helps students grasp and connect the picture with the word. And so, as we're reading the story, you want to hold two different types of either fruits or a food and a fruit and see if they are following along and have the correct choice and remind them of where we're at in the story. And then we would put the food in order by day. So we do know that the hungry caterpillar ate certain foods on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So we can see right here in this poster an example of day one, which is Monday, Tuesday. So this is a very beautiful picture I found, and it's very detailed and it explains, and you can see the caterpillar, how it's growing as well as it is also eating, and it eats more. The kids can very much see that the more it eats, the bigger it gets. And also, I added the stages of a caterpillar so we can see the little uh, egg on the leaf and the caterpillar, the cocoon, and at the very end, it turns into a butterfly. It would be really neat to show um, a real cocoon and have it grow throughout the semester. It is a very neat science activity that also can be included, and it is also part of the story because a caterpillar does turn into sorry, it turns into a butterfly. So that is that.
Hello, and welcome to the second part of our presentation covering realia and bilingual books and labels. My name is McKenna Connell, and I will be covering Strategy 16 Bilingual Books and Labels. Bilingual books and labels are texts in school prints that are shown in two or more languages, including English. They serve several purposes. They validate students' home languages. They help transfer reading skills from their first language to English. They expose all students to multiple cultures. They support vocabulary development and cognitive recognition. They encourage parent involvement and home school connection. Research shows that valuing students' native language leads to better attitudes towards school and learning. We will be covering The Very Hungry Caterpillar. A book like The Very Hungry Caterpillar is especially effective because it teaches vocabulary sequencing and days of the week. When students see the story in both languages, they make connections more easily. And because this book is familiar to many families, it encourages parents to read with their children at home. This strategy is important because it validates the home languages and makes them feel included. Research shows that when students see that their language is valued, they develop more positive attitudes towards school and learning. A bilingual book like The Very Hungry Caterpillar is especially helpful because it teaches vocabulary sequencing and days of the week in a very visual and repetitive way. It also helps English only students learn about other cultures and languages, and it encourages families to read together at home. What the process looks like. First, you would identify the spoken language in the classroom, then label the objects in the story, read the book aloud, compare the languages and highlight the cognates, discuss cultural connections, and use the rubric of the book to evaluate the implementations. Here's how I would implement this strategy using The Very Hungry Caterpillar. First, I would identify the spoken language in the room. Next, I would label the objects in the story. Then I would use the bilingual book Read Aloud, and I'd show both language versions and pause to compare words and highlight cognates. I would also invite the students to share how they say these words at home. And then I would use the rubric to reflect on how consistently I'm using the multilingual print in the classroom. For my demonstration, imagine I am reading a bilingual version of The Very Hungry Caterpillar to the class. I would read a page in English and then show the same page in home language version. First, for example, I might say in English, we say caterpillar. In Spanish, we say oruga. I would ask the students if they notice any similar words and encourage them to share how they say apple, leaf, or butterfly in their home language. This activity helps to build vocabulary, confidence, cultural pride, and with helping the students connect to languages. The benefit of this strategy helps English learners with comprehension, confidence, biliteracy. It helps English speakers have multicultural awareness. Families can read aloud together, and specifically, the Very Hungry Caterpillar supports sequences and vocabulary in both languages. This strategy benefits everyone in the classroom. English learners get support with the comprehension and feel represented. English only students gain multicultural awareness and exposure to new languages, and families can participate because the Very Hungry Caterpillar is simple, visual, and available in many languages. Overall, it strengthens biliteracy, identity, and home connection. Bilingual books and labels create a classroom where every language is valued. In closing, bilingual books and labels help create a classroom where every language is valued. Using a familiar story like the Very Hungry Caterpillar makes it easy for students and families to connect with a text in meaningful ways. This strategy supports biliteracy, cultural identity, and more inclusive learning environment.